So as you can see, we're no longer at the coast and at that lighthouse because just wasn't working. The placement of the lighthouse just was in completely the wrong place to get any sorts of shot. You couldn't, we tried going behind it. There was some lovely crops that kind of led up to it, but obviously all you had then was those crops, a bit at the top of the lighthouse and then cloud behind it, and it just wasn't working. It wasn't balanced enough for me. And from the other side of it, all you had basically was the lighthouse itself. It wasn't close enough to the coast to be able to integrate it into a shot. So we've actually come further inland now, and actually not too far inland. We've come to a place called Wasdale Head, and it's somewhere that I haven't really photographed before. I've kind of stayed away from it, but because we were so close, decided to kind of turn up and see what we could get. Now obviously the light's pretty harsh at the moment, so the only way that I can really get a shot that really works for me is to do a long exposure. So what I'm going to do is get you to the back of the camera and walk you through what I'm about to do. Right, so hopefully what you should see is I've tried a couple of different shots here. I've tried the strip panel, which I really love, and I've also tried a full 4:3 aspect ratio, just to see which one I prefer. I'm going to do the same technique with both. So what I've done is, because I want a really long exposure, I want about a 15 stop to make this work, because I want about a 4-minute exposure. So what I'm doing is, I'm selecting a focus point. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm bringing up histogram at the minute. Right. Select a focus point, which is going to be that middle mountain there, which you can just see in the middle of the frame. Then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to lock the focus down to manual so it doesn't move. Then what I'm going to do is put my other filter on and adjust my exposure to match. So I'm coming all the way up so that it's level. Now I always take it one stop above if possible, but it obviously depends on the time that you want out of it, and it's just over where it should be there. Now that's giving me a 4-minute exposure, and I'm just going to press the shutter button now. And the idea is, what I want is, because it's quite windy, you can hear it behind me there, the wind is actually moving down the valley towards the hills off in the distance, so hopefully those clouds are going to streak off above those hills and give it a little bit of interest. I'll put the pano version up as well as the 4:3 version, see which one you prefer. So really that's the only shot I've really got from this location today, because it's really quite harsh and because there's nothing really going on for me apart from that. That's why I've just got this long exposure shot, which hopefully one of them has worked. We're going to now head further back out of this valley, because on the way in we noticed there was a beautiful oak woodland that might have some potential, so we're going to check that out and then see what else we can find to photograph after that. So I'll catch up with you in a little while. Right guys, so I realised this video is going to be all over the place today. We've gone from coast to the lakes, and now we're kind of making our way over to a waterfall. But on the way we kind of stopped over on one of these passes, and you can see the mountains off in the distance there, and I thought it would make a really nice pano shot, so I've got it lined up now. I know it's kind of, again, it's been one of those days where we've not really known where to go. It's been a day of exploration, really. Started off wanting to go to the coast because I'd seen an image of a lighthouse that looked kind of promising, and I wanted to go to an area that we hadn't really visited before. And to be honest, this side of the lakes is somewhere I haven't really visited before. I've always kind of tended to be drawn to the other side, which is sort of the Keswick side and Borrowdale side. And coming over here, it kind of gives you a completely different perspective. So it's quite interesting to see what's available to shoot over in this side anyway. Okay, what you should see is I've got this in a strip pano format again. And then you've got these lower hills just off in the distance here, and they're catching quite nice light. Every now and then we're getting some really nice light coming through and just illuminating this bottom lower section of the image. And off in the distance, obviously, we've got all the cloud above the mountain tops, and I've been waiting for a period where there's not as much blue sky on show. I wanted more kind of mood with the clouds. And those clouds are moving quite fast across the frame at the minute, so that's not too much of an issue. It's just a matter of waiting a few moments. Now what I'm shooting at, I've got ISO 100, f16, and I'm roughly at about 100th of a second here. Just slightly underexposure just for the sky, but as you can see, it's not really that bright, so it's not too much of an issue. Every now and then the sun comes out from behind us there and lights up those clouds, so I'm just trying to make sure that I don't get any, kind of hot spots appearing in the clouds, but it's not too much of an issue at the minute. And as I say, it's just a waiting game really. The light on the landscape's really nice. I'm just waiting for those clouds to shift across and kind of fill some of that blue space in, because I don't want too much of that in there. It looks a little bit distracting to my eye anyway. So I'm just going to wait around till that sort of moves across a little bit more, and then I'm going to grab the shot. Right guys, so we're just coming along this road and notice these lovely white grasses, and there's a white cottage, farm cottage off in the distance there with these beautiful mountains behind it. We're heading back across this pass towards the Langdales. You'll have to give me a second because we're going to get interrupted with a vehicle in a minute. So what we're waiting for is basically the sun's just about to illuminate the grasses now. I'm just press record on the back of here and you'll see what I'm seeing through the viewfinder. So I've got my focus point on that cottage in the middle of the frame there. I was waiting until that van's out of the frame. But the sun, as these clouds are moving through, the sun is just illuminating these white grasses down in the lower section of the frame. I've tried it both as a pano and also as a 16:9 as well. Now what I like about the pano is I'm eliminating a lot of these sort of green grasses of the bank in front of me here and getting just the white grass, which I really like, because when that sun hits it, it just illuminates and looks beautiful. And then you've got the sun hitting the mountain peaks in the background, and then obviously you've got the cloud above it, which is adding a nice bit of texture and drama to the scene as well. So I'm going to grab 3 different shots here. I've grabbed the strip pano, 16:9, and then I'm going to get the 100 to 200 and go tighter in as well and see what that looks like. And then we can kind of put all 3 up on screen and see which looks better for this scene. But it just goes to show Today's been very much a scouting mission, but these areas that we've seen have got so much potential and definitely worth revisiting. Now, one of the things that really stood out to me about this shot is not only have you got all this white grass back here, but it's the symmetry of the mountains behind me here. If you notice the V shapes of the valleys on either side of that main hill in the centre there, both more or less come down in the same sort of place on both sides, and it's really symmetrical image. And then you've got that cottage positioned just in the middle of the frame, so it looks really balanced to my eye anyway. So I've put the 100 to 200 on, and what you can see is what I've actually done is tilted the camera back, because what's happening is if I just lower this down, what you should see is if I lower it down to where I had it before, you can see that it's kind of, there's a lot of grass in the foreground, but there's not very much sky in the frame at all. The cottage is kind of central to it, and then you've got the mountains off in the distance. So what I've actually done with this, with being in at 100mm, I've just tilted the camera back so that I get less grass. I've got the cottage in, and I've got kind of a more balanced frame because I've got a bit more sky in it. So what I've got in the middle of the frame is the mountains, and then at the top of the frame I've got more of the sky, and then the lower section of the frame I've got the cottage and that grass as well. And when that's illuminated, it looks absolutely stunning. So I'm just gonna adjust my settings here and go F16 again and just grab this shot. And the light on that is amazing at the minute, it's beautiful. The only slight thing is that the foreground's really well illuminated, the grass looks beautiful, but there's no light on that cottage whatsoever, and it could just do with just a kiss of light on that cottage just to make it stand out a little. So that's been a really fantastic day, just scouting new locations, some places that we can return to at a later date when conditions are a lot better, and maybe that we get different conditions like snow or storms, things like that. Places we can log and go back to when these places are going to yield the best results. Hopefully you've enjoyed this week's video. Like and subscribe if you have, and I'll see you on the next video soon. Take care. Bye-bye.